15% of all businesses will fail in the very first year. 30% of businesses will fail by year 2, and 50% of businesses will fail by year 5. That's according to Industry Canada, and that is the most optimistic stats I've ever found on the subject. A lot of them will say 80 or 90% are going to fail.
I can see the whole wide world with these 2 eyes, and I can be whoever I want to be, 'cause it's my life.
I'm going to have Chris Wilke, aka Tony Robbins, from
Not that tall.
C&W Garage Door, and we're going to talk about some of the common myths of entrepreneurship. So first of all, we'll go through why this is kind of important to me. Some people don't quite understand it. 15% of all businesses will fail in the very first year. 30% of businesses will fail by year 2, and 50% of businesses will fail by year 5. That's according to Industry Canada, and that is the most optimistic stats I've ever found on the subject. A lot of them will say 80 or 90% are going to fail. So what I'd like to do is everybody in this room stand up. Sorry. And everybody from the green shirt, that way. All of you guys on this side of the room, I want all of you guys to sit down. These are the businesses that will fail if we do nothing else. These are the businesses that will fail if we do nothing else. Sorry for the people on that side of the room. And what we tend to do, I want you guys to keep standing here on this side. What we tend to do is we trivialize business failure. We don't look at, the human element of it. And, really, me as an accountant, I get to see, unfortunately, what happens to the bitter end. What happens, because we have to file right to the bitter end, long after they stop serving customers. And, what happens, we talk about all these other human issues, but, there's things like depression, families break up, people lose their life savings, and, suicide rate increase. It's a very serious issue to me. And that's why I care about small businesses the way that most people care about things like human rights or the environment or baby seals. And not that those things aren't important, but I have no idea how to fix them. I know how to fix this. So we often, trivialize these, business issues because we think there's no human element to them when there's a very real human element to them. And the other part is people don't understand how significant this is. 5% of the Canadian population is self-employed. Approximately 5% of the Canadian population is self-employed. 53% of all jobs in Canada are created by small businesses. So 5% are self-employed, 53% of all jobs. This issue is affecting Canadian households at an absolute epidemic. And so, the amount that this affects the Canadian economy is grossly underestimated. People will look at, what are we doing with minimum wage? Are we building a pipeline? Nobody is talking about this. No one is talking about this at all. And the stats are really quite bleak on it. And, I've been studying, running, advising small businesses for over 2 decades now. And really, I start to see trends. The same thing starts working over and over again, and the same thing starts failing over and over again. And when you really break it down and you study small businesses, there's only really 3 problems that you have to solve. Is number 1, they fail to attract enough customers. That'll be the most common problem. Number 2 is they'll run out of cash. Okay? And number 3 is they can't find the right team. So not enough customers, they run out of cash, they can't find the right team. And everything else is noise, like it's just white noise, and people are focused on the wrong thing. So if we could solve those 3 problems, all of these people will start from here. You guys can stand back up again, and just that little end, you guys can stay sitting. Yeah, you guys stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, Waddy. Stand up. Stand up in the middle here. If we could solve those problems, those 3 problems, these are the only failures that we would have. We would be able to keep 90% of the businesses. Okay, I'll let everybody sit down now. Thanks for letting me do that again. this rate of failure is entirely unnecessary because there are proven strategies that work over and over and over again. My experience is that successful entrepreneurs, they do the same things. And they do the same things that are written in the top business books. You take out the one or two outliers here, and you start reading all the books, and they start saying there's some, outlier ideas, but then a lot of the ideas, they're just repeated over and over and over again. And when I look at successful entrepreneurs, they start doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm not telling this as someone who, I think is smarter than you. I'm telling you as someone who's probably tried the other way already. And so I've tried the way that doesn't work so well. And, now after 20 years, I'm starting to get a little bit good at it. That's what I want to show you guys today is, avoid that 20 years of learning. And there's so many people who have gone before us. And so it's not what, keeps me up at night is the fact that 50% of businesses fail, is that they're failing for entirely preventable reasons. Let's think about if you knew that there was a really significant form of cancer and it was affecting 53% of the Canadian households, and you knew exactly how you could reduce that rate of cancer dramatically. You could 2/3 of it you could solve it. Okay, that's what keeps me up at night. And a lot of it, it often gets buried in these timeless strategies, get buried in this kind of, especially now in this entrepreneur culture, the hashtag entrepreneur life. I don't know if anyone is ever looked at this stuff on Instagram, but let's do just a quick search here and see if I can find something.
Hey Josh, don't pull up mine like you did last time. Right? Wasn't having a good hair day.
You don't let me in?
You can just search it. You just go.
Let's go entrepreneur.
Hashtag entrepreneur.
Oh, Google's smarter than Instagram. Oh, here we go. We get the Lamborghinis. Failed at this demonstration. We need the Instagram. Those are pretty good. If you want entrepreneur, just go to Google.
YouTube it. You'll get all those videos.
Yeah. So, but if you pull out your phone right now and you do a search of entrepreneur on Instagram, you're going to see Lamborghinis and girls in bikinis and stacks of cash floating there. And that's not what entrepreneur life is really about. So the problem with strategies that actually work is they're difficult. They only work if you do type of thing. But if you execute them, if you decide, hey, I'm not banking on winning the lottery. I'm not going to be that 1% of the 1%. And I just want to be the guy who, counts the cards at the blackjack table and I know exactly what's going to work 90% of the time. You will win 90% of the time. And you can just do it over and over and over again. So we'll flip to the myths and we'll start with myth 1 here. So myth number 1 is that you can only work when you are motivated. Chris, do you get to only work when you're motivated?
Oh man, if only. So a lot of the times I will come home from a really busy work day around 5-6 o'clock after I've just installed 2 doors, and
you guys can introduce yourself. So that, do you mind, just so we know?
oh, I'm Chris.
Josh Spurrell and Associates. We got Chris Wilke, C&W. We got Kevin Stay, Halo Power. We got Trevor Salmon's Inspired Method. We got Matthew Hammond, Sinesis Financial, and we got Yahweh from Always Bookkeeping.
You might recognize us from our spot on the flyer.
Yeah,
it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So
not a big deal. Anyway, I'm sorry. So yes, a lot of times I will get home at 6 o'clock at night, and my phone will ring, and someone's spring is broken, and I really, really don't want to go to that call, even though it's. See, look at that already. Like people will call, and I'm in a meeting. I can't handle it. I'm not motivated to go do that. But I will answer that phone, and I will go out to that call, because that person is not just one job. That person is 10 jobs. That person's 20 jobs. That person is 30 jobs, depending on how many people they tell about you. And I guarantee you, when you go to their house at 9 o'clock at night and get their car out, because their daughter has a dance recital tomorrow and they absolutely have to be there at 6 a.m., they're gonna remember you, and they're gonna remember that going the extra mile.